Hello, my name is Pam Keith. I was the 2020 Democratic nominee in Florida's 18th Congressional District. Sadly, I didn't win, but I follow in the footsteps of someone I truly admire, Stacey Abrams. In 2018, she also lost a really heartbreaking election, but rather than giving up and licking her wounds, she went right back to work to fix the things that were going on in Georgia to make sure that in the next election they'd be competitive. And Stacey was incredibly successful in doing so. What she did that's really important is she said, look, there's certain things that need to be done and they're not being done. She didn't wait to hand that responsibility off to someone else. She didn't expect the party to step up and do it. She put together an organization that took care of doing what needs to be done to win. And that's precisely what I'm doing for the state of Florida. I'm so excited to introduce you to a new entity called Fight for Florida's Future. It's a political action committee that will fund and stand up a permanent, statewide, community-facing voter engagement machine and campaign support operation. There's some things you need to understand about Florida and how it functions to understand why simply another register voters GOTV effort is not going to do. But I don't want to demean or poo-poo those efforts. Florida has some amazing organizations that work at the grassroots level, whether it's the Second Chances Coalition that got restoration of felon voting rights, or great union-sponsored entities like Working Families Party or New Florida Majority, Organizing Florida. We're really lucky to have so many excited, energetic, and friendly volunteers that are Democrats who are willing to go out and knock doors in the heat of Florida summer. We don't have a problem with finding strong candidates or getting enthusiastic volunteers. We even have a pretty strong donor base in the state of Florida as well. What we're lacking, however, is the kind of infrastructure that makes all of those entities and all of those efforts work efficiently and work in a way that actually wins elections. In order to understand what's going on wrong on the Democratic side, you kind of need to understand what's going right on the Republican side. And by right, I mean going correctly and effectively. The biggest advantage that Republicans have in the state of Florida is the ubiquity of Fox News. In Florida, if you were going to get your nails done or go to the dentist or you're getting your oil changed, chances are the business is watching Fox News. Fox News is the default television station. It's the din in the background. It's not viewed as extreme right here. It's viewed as the only source of news that is quote unquote credible. But because it is so ubiquitous, you don't see MSNBC or CNN regularly in Florida. Fox News does the heavy lifting of spreading Republican messaging all over the state, 24/7, 365. And I want to make something absolutely clear. Fox News is an extension of RNC messaging. If you want to know what the RNC members are saying, look at Fox News because that's what the talking heads are going to be saying too. It is an enormous messaging advantage. And sadly, the Democrats in the state of Florida have nothing that comes close to competing with that. In fact, they don't have any system or infrastructure that messages year-round on Democratic platform at all. That's something that needs to change. Another thing you need to understand about the GOP in Florida is that it is a business structure and works hand in hand with the Florida Chamber of Commerce. That means that it has permanent staff and permanent funding systems. It works on a data-driven platform, and it is able to keep operations going year-round. It doesn't wax and wane with election cycles. However, the same is not true on the Democratic side. Lastly, you need to know that the Republican Party structures make just basic conversations, just recognizing other Democrats, complicated in our state. Most of our areas have HOAs and golfing communities where you're prohibited from demonstrating that you're politically inclined unless it's within just a few weeks of the election. And so Democrats are basically not allowed to communicate or share with each other that they're proud Democrats. What that means is that we don't talk about politics when we go to play golf or bridge. We don't talk about politics when we go shopping. We don't see it. We don't see Democratic presence in our state. The opposite, however, is not true. The Republicans see representation everywhere, from the governorship to the elected officials to Trump and Trumpism all over our state to Fox News. It is ubiquitous. And so we need to build something that makes Democrats proud, visible, able to connect to each other and influence one another. Fight for Florida's Future looks at what the Republican Party does well and says, we're going to build something that competes with that. From data gathering, permanent infrastructure, the ability to provide support to their candidates and campaigns, technical skills like language translation. Many of you know that we have many ethnicities in the state of Florida that have their own native languages. We need to provide to all candidates the ability to translate and put their materials in the languages in their district, and do that free of charge. We need to back up our candidates across the state rather than focusing exclusively on candidates in battleground districts. What happened in 2020 ought to be the neon sign saying that we need a change. What the Republicans have managed to do in Florida is to solidify their control of rural and small counties such that we can't even compete there. Pour millions and millions of dollars to compete in battleground districts and take those from us, and have enough left over to actually challenge us in the areas that we consider to be solidly blue, like Miami-Dade and Broward. In 2016, Miami-Dade was won with 67% of the vote, 67% Democrat. In 2020, that number went down to 53% Democrat. It's not that the Republicans were able to immigrate huge numbers of Republicans into our state, although they did have a strategic plan to recruit Republicans here. It's that they had much more sophisticated data and information to find Republicans, register them, and turn them out. They got into the business of making Republicans, not just turning them out. We need to be in the business of making Democrats, not just turning them out. I'm so excited to share this plan and this idea with you, because if we fund this and we stand this up, we're going to have something that's lasting, permanent, and year-round. It doesn't go into the ether when campaign season is over. It gives all of our candidates a better fighting chance by messaging year-round and landing punches on incumbent Republicans like Marco Rubio and Ron DeSantis. Right now, they have high approval ratings in the state of Florida, even if they're considered lousy across the country, because in Florida, the messaging always comes from Fox News. We've got to find a way to compete year-round to support our candidates all the time, to make it easier to run in our states, and to make the Republicans defend their turf against an insurgent, energized, unified, and permanent Democratic presence. Please join me in supporting Fight for Florida's Future as a monthly benefactor at whatever level you can afford. If we do this and we do this right, we will pick up votes all over the state of Florida. We will energize our 900,000 African Americans in our state who are of age and not registered to vote. We will reach into new and growing communities like our migrant agricultural communities and our young people, of which 1.2 million will become eligible to vote between now and 2022. We need to be thoughtful, intentional, and systematic about everything we do to compete and win elections. And when we do, we will not only flip Florida blue, but we'll put those 29 electoral votes in the blue column now and for years and years to come. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this, and please join our battle with Fight for Florida's Future.